Good day and welcome to The Pipeline. I'm Derek Fildebrandt, publisher of The Western Standard. Today is December 17th, 2025, our last episode before we get right up to Christmas. We'll be taking a little break over the holidays, unless all hell breaks loose. Maybe we had to be in kind of last year because Justin Trudeau's leadership was about to go down, so it was a less quiet Christmas than usual. I'm not expecting anything like that, but we got a good, likely last show of the year for you here today. We're going to be talking about the circus of BC Conservative politics. Both the BC Conservative Party and One BC, both parties have decapitated their leaders. One with the majority of the caucus voting to overthrow them and the party board backing them up. And then One BC, a two-member caucus, which apparently was too big to hold together. That's too big a coalition to hold together. One of the one who's not the leader voting against the other one, and then the party board. Just total damned mess. So we're gonna be trying to carve apart what's happening in Lotus Land. Skate Canada is demanding that men get to compete against women in their events, and if not, they're not holding any events in Alberta. Alberta doesn't get any Skate Canada events, because Alberta had the temerity to say that men don't compete against women, boys don't compete against girls. I guess we're not past all the madness yet. I thought we had more or less won this battle. Seems we won it in Alberta. The rest of Canada, you're still crazy. But first, mass migration kills. Everyone already knows what happened in if I'm pronouncing it right, Bondi Beach in Australia. First day of Hanukkah. We don't know everything yet, but it would seem two radical Islamists opened fire and killed, I think, 10 that we know of.
No, you said 15, is it?
15,
35.
15. Still more injured, so maybe the death toll could still climb.
Hope not.
But, just a massacre in that country of Jewish people at the opening of Hanukkah. And I'm dismayed by the reaction. There's the usual hopes and thoughts and prayers, which is fine. I mean, when something bad happens, it's an appropriate thing to do. But the reaction of many, I think, it's insulting our intelligence, what we just know to be true. I think to a guest column penned by Erwin Kotler in the Golden Mail yesterday. He is a Jewish former Liberal cabinet minister federally, and he's
Solicitor General for quite a while.
Yeah, generally respected guy, thoughtful. And, often looked to as a fairly public spokesman of the Jewish community in Canada. And he couldn't have got it more wrong. His point was, we need more education and training around anti-Semitism. We need harder hate speech laws. So taking away freedoms. And more control on guns. More gun control. More taking away freedoms. Not once did he mention that Australia and us and the rest of the West have opened up our borders and brought in a virtually unlimited pipeline of migrants, many of which are carrying hateful ideologies wanting to do this. Radical Islam being the overwhelmingly biggest culprit of that. No mention that perhaps we should stand back and think that importing hundreds of thousands or millions a year, depending on which country, of people, a large proportion, what proportion I can't say exactly, no one can, a large proportion of which wish to do violent violence against Jewish people. No mention that perhaps that is the culprit for this. Instead, the action is to take away more freedom of speech and more gun rights from Australians who already don't have a lot of freedom of speech and don't have a lot of gun rights. I'm picking on Irwin Cotler here just because this is a prominent Canadian example. But this was essentially the reaction of the Australian Prime Minister and many other leaders across the West, across the world. This is the response, not end mass migration, of which includes many people who are predisposed to want to do this. Sorry to hurt your feelings, guys. Obviously not everyone from the Muslim community is like that. Not at all. Not even close. But a large proportion is. They got a big problem there, and no one wants to talk about it. No one wants to address it. The answer is not that. The answer is take away the freedoms of Australians. And I feel like that's not only going to not stop the problem, that's actually going to create anti-Semitism.
Well, they're certainly not going to gain votes for that particular Prime Minister, Albanese. You've of course stolen my parting shot here, but I was going to point out that within hours, minutes even, of this incident, and when you call the death of 15 people an incident, you're kind of damning with faint praise. That's a terrible bloody thing that happened there. And he comes out and he says, well, going to have tighter gun controls, as if it was the gun that was the problem and not the two men with guns who decided that day to go out and kill people. It's such a cliche. Guns don't kill people. People kill people. Well, actually, they do. And but it's actually worse. It's worse even than that, because what you're seeing in Australia is what we see in Canada all the time, is an attempt to deny that there is a problem. And if you say there isn't a problem, then you don't have to do anything. And if you don't have to do anything, you don't have to offend the certain ethnic communities, and let's call the ones where, the ones who came here as refugees from Gaza, the ones who are already here, who sympathize with them. You don't have to call them out and say, you guys did this. Instead, you say, well, as the Australian Prime Minister did, we need to be on the watch out for right-wing extremist groups who are white. It is an exercise in denial, and it is utterly shameful, and it seems to be all the major countries of the Anglosphere won't actually step up and call it what it is. It is a war on Jews. And I'm not, I didn't become much of a supporter of Israel until October the 7th, but my word, if you were going to go around the world and pick people off at Brown University or some other American university that came up in Connecticut recently, if you're going to go to have activists in Australia go out one day to shoot 15 people dead, if you were going to go to a German small town and try and ram a car into their Christmas fair and kill people that way, there is something going on, and it is utterly foolish to deny it. But that's what these people do, and that is the discouraging message I take away from the events of Bondi Beach.
So the Australian Prime Minister, Cory, he says, we got to be on the look for right-wing terrorism here, of which this obviously is not. But his reaction is not to address the very obvious source of the problem, mass migration from the Islamic world, which has at least a significant portion, again, what portion? Don't know, but a significant and critical mass proportion that are willing to do this kind of thing, and instead say, we need to crack down on free speech, and we need to crack down on guns. And by the way, anyone who doesn't know, they've already taken all the guns in Australia. It's a dystopian place for people with gun rights. We're really bad in Canada, but we're practically Texas compared to Australia, where they've taken everyone's guns away. So the reaction isn't to deal with the actual culprits of the problem and the source of the problem, mass migration, is to take away the freedoms of Australians. I would posit that while I don't think they have a right-wing terrorism problem right now, that's how you create one.
Oh, yeah, and there's... I'm paraphrasing probably with Penn Jillette, who said a great thing some years ago. He said, whenever something horrific happens, somebody does something terrible, governments step in to take rights away from good people. And that's what we're seeing in Australia. They're cowardly. They won't target the root of the problem. And it runs deeper than just an anti-Jewish thing. As Nigel touched upon, though, they're going after Christmas markets. The radical Islamists hate everybody. I mean, one of their targets are Jews, but when they rammed into the World Trade Center, it wasn't an anti-Jew thing. It was an anti-Western, anti-humanity, and that had nothing to do with firearms either. So you can take away all you like. They're ramming vans through people. They're stabbing people. They're blowing people up. The Boston terrorists, what kind of guns did they use again? So you have to stop the killers, not the tools that they're using. We can't ban airplanes to stop another 911 from happening. And we have to start holding, and that's where they're terrified, the groups and the countries and the imams and some of the people responsible for the radicalization. I'm going to use what's probably a terrible analogy, but let's say I had my big dog ranch out in Prentice, and I had 5,000 dogs, but most of them were really well behaved, but every once in a while, 5 or 6 of them would escape, and it turns out they're vicious, and they would attack a few people before they're shot and put down. And I'll say, yeah, but it's a tiny minority of my dogs. Would that get me off the hook? We've got to start. I don't care how tiny a minority it is. No other identifiable faith or group is spawning so many radicals as we're seeing out of radical Islam, as we have seen for the last 80 years. It's time to start blunt speaking about it. And I know that can lead to prejudices against many, many peace-loving Muslim people. It was actually a Muslim man who intervened.
Yeah, that's important
an
to know.
Incredible hero. I mean, he had courage that I don't know if we could all claim to step in on. And ironically, he got shot by the Australian police with their Keystone Cop routine. That's how he got shot. He wasn't shot by the terrorists. He was shot by the cops because they saw a brown guy with a rifle and they shot him. They shot the wrong one.
And so the cops, from what I could tell, actually even hid and weren't doing their job.
Yeah.
This man,
because they didn't know guns. I didn't expect guns to be part of my job. It's just brutal. And
You wouldn't have it all been banned, would you?
well, exactly.
that means there is no gun.
So
Right?
it's
one thing, can I say, I don't know, Derek, about the, there's always a minority. We're not condemning everybody. One of the things that sociologists pointed out years ago was that in any sort of mass national psychosis, there is usually only a very few people who are prepared to act. But there are 10 who will give them money so they can act. And there are 90 who will read about it in the paper and nod their heads approvingly. And I think that's kind of, I wouldn't want to be hung up on the exact numbers, but I think with the Muslim population in Canada, most of them will never attack you. But some will certainly support people who do the attacking. And if our reports are to be believed, the others will quietly nod with satisfaction and look forward to the day when Canada is a Muslim country and we'll just get there in the end. That's the way this is breaking down. So
yeah, and it's tough. I mean, we're talking immigration is part of the root of it.
Yeah,
Mass immigration, but I do admit part of it's difficult. I mean, how do you separate the fly poop from the pepper? How do you find the radical immigrant versus the genuine one who just wants to find a job? You're getting into thought crime territory.
Well, that's why we don't sift through it. We just stop taking them from that part of the world.
Oh, so I'm okay with that. I'm just trying to.
I've been going off the deep end on this stuff lately. I've gone from very reasonable, moderate on immigration to pretty hardcore. You know what? It's not our job to sort through. It's your job to sort it through in your own countries. And when you guys figure that out, then we can talk.
We're not getting any terrorists.
But it's not up to us to sort through your shit. You sort it out in your own countries. And when you sort it out, then come to us. I mean, it shouldn't be our problem. But we're importing problems.
Yeah.
By the way, we imported a bunch of problems 30 years ago. Remember, still the largest terrorist incident in Canada was the Air India bombing. I think it was something like 300 people went down with that plane. Mm-hmm. That was not planned by anybody but people who had immigrated from India. One wonders whether for the express purpose of doing something like that.
And in that case, it was not Muslims. That was a radical Sikh and Khalistani issue.
But it is importing from
an start bringing in all the problem people in.
Well, here's some of the challenge, though. Again, I mean, boy, if we're talking, the radical Khalistani movement is very, very dangerous. Yet at the same time, we have a massive amount of Indian immigrants into Canada. We never really had a problem with the Hindu element coming in. But that's where you're starting to sift through the immigrant.
Well, yeah, and within the Sikh community, they terrorize other members who are more moderate within the Sikh community who are just not. They're like, yeah, I'm in Canada now. I'm not dealing with this, and I'm not altogether unsympathetic with
a lot of them did come here to get away from that crap.
Yeah, I'm not altogether unsympathetic for those who want an independent Khalistan, people who want their own country, it's self-determination. Okay, I'm not altogether opposed to the principle of it,
but don't use this as a staging area.
Over in Khalistan. Yeah. You want to fight about Khalistan? Do it in Khalistan. Not here.
Yeah, absolutely. We've seen radio hosts attacked in Northeast Calgary over that.
Rishi, we know him. Yeah. We know Rishi. Like, well,
the first step though is talking openly about it, bluntly. Well, and we're starting in here.
Take your dog ranch analogy, imperfect as it is, even further. So I'm going to stretch the metaphor. This would be like, okay, so you've got some ones that are, bad and running around. This would be like you now saying, okay, to fix the problem of my dogs here, I'm going to require everyone else in the neighborhood to register their cats.
Yeah.
We're going to have to spay your cats now. We're going to spay everyone's cats. Yeah. Well, the cats had nothing to do with it. Homegrown regular Australians had nothing to do with this. You don't need to take away more of their freedom of speech, they don't need to have any gun rights, but whatever piddly, measly access they have to legitimate use of firearms, take that away. No, we're going to spay the cats because we have a couple of rabid dogs from Cory's ranch. That's what they're doing.
Because they're afraid to deal with Cory. They're chickens. That's the real problem, too. Just to say, you know what, we're going to put a big wall around your ranch until you can get your crap and dogs under control. Yeah. None of them are leaving your ranch.
Yeah, that's the answer. All right. Well, we're going to stick with mass migration, but we're going to bring it all the way home here, where at least one politician in Canada is proposing to do something sane about it. Rick Bell in the Calgary Sun Herald, it's all the same thing now, had a good scoop today and last night. The Danielle Smith is floating the idea now, and I can tell you matter-of-factly, they're pretty serious about it, of essentially Alberta bringing in, kind of parallel to the federal immigration system, a requirement that everyone would have to be working here for roughly at least 10 years or so, paying into the system before you're actually able to take anything out of it. Which I think makes a lot of sense. I think she needs to expand it beyond just welfare and whatnot. It needs to be applied to maybe even education and whatnot. The idea being that Alberta gets to say, here's immigrants that we approve of. These ones look like they're of value to us because it's not supposed to be a one-way street. It's supposed to be a two-way street here. If you don't have it, we're going to deny you social services. So no welfare. They haven't fleshed the whole thing out, but I think it should be extended to education. No, your kids are not getting educated on the taxpayer's dime in Alberta. You can put them in a private school if you want, without the public support for that section of you in the private school. We shouldn't even issue you a driver's license. We should make it virtually impossible to legally live here unless you've met Alberta's criteria. And she wants also, like Quebec, take more control over selecting immigrants for cultural compatibility and whatnot. Quebec does that really heavy for language, but we've got whole sections of Calgary here now where schools, half the kids more don't even speak functional English as a second language. And so no one's learning anything. The kids in the class who speak English, they're not learning anything because the teachers there's literal schools and neighborhoods in Calgary where they have translators. This is not good for us. But the real reforms need to happen at the federal level, Cory. But I don't know. I think this is a huge first step for any province stepping up, trying to wrangle this issue.
This is a great way for a province to try and take control of an issue that is a federal mismanagement issue because we're limited. You can't, under the rules of the Federation, stop interprovincial migration. I mean, it would be, not viable to be able to do that. Somebody who's moving from Toronto or Saskatchewan or BC to Alberta, but you can make this an unpleasant destination for the kind of immigrants you don't want.
Yeah.
And that's, if they're actually shopping for provinces based on who's got the best social services for me, well, we're not going to be high on their list as a destination spot to land.
You got to.
And in fact, some of the ones who are already here and strongly partaking in the social services might reconsider where they're living and move elsewhere. This is going to turn to something much bigger as it goes, because then some of the other provinces saying, well, come one, come all, take advantage of our welfare and our school and everything, are suddenly going to find themselves overwhelmed by the welfare shoppers. It goes a little farther back almost to Ralph Klein when he was giving bus tickets to undesirables to move to other provinces. It wasn't immigrant based. It was just saying the ones collecting welfare, if you really want to move to a province with better welfare, we'll help you out. Or, even worse, the Castro getting rid of his undesirables, saying, well, if the states are taking them all and giving them impunity, let's empty our mental institutions and our prisons and send them all over there. You can have them. Though I that's being a little too rude, and our immigrants are not necessarily criminals and lunatics, but
I get it what you're saying.
It's a strategy of just saying, we're not going to make it as nice here for you as
the incentives matter. I mean, I have all kinds of sympathy for people on age, but we pay more to people on age in Alberta than they do in BC, Saskatchewan, and most other places. So guess what? If you've got nothing else tying you to Manitoba, come to Alberta. Better deal. So using that, extending that metaphor, the idea of, how did you put it, making it just a little less comfortable? It has the one thing where I'm not quite sure how this works out is that if a family moves into Alberta and they have children and the children don't get to go to school, well, what happens? You raise a generation of juvenile delinquents. Could be worse. So there has got to be some other way of discouraging immigration.
I'm not sure they mentioned education here. I think they should include it, but we have to make it very appetizing for them to leave. Like, you don't get a driver's license, and okay, you're gonna get arrested then. Like, you're gonna end up facing the legal system by not being in compliance with other sections of Alberta law if we have not approved you being here.
Well, just to play that devil's advocate and unintended consequences, though, if new immigrants are having difficulty getting driver's licenses here, it's going to be harder for them to find jobs here, which is the intent. We want them working and contributing.
Yeah. But you have to be approved to be here first. Like, you have to be someone who's met Alberta's criteria for cultural compatibility. You can speak at least a little bit of English. Yeah, you don't have to come here quoting Shakespeare fresh off the boat, but you've got to be able to function before you land on our soil.
Okay, so just let's say a fellow is coming in from another province, another country. He's going to take a $150,000 a year job for which he is uniquely qualified. And he gets here and he's told he can't drive a car. Now that is going to...
Well, if he's landing a $150,000 a year job, there's a very good chance the Alberta government will say, that's the kind of guy we want. He's got some unique skills that can't be met.
We won't take the...
We need the day laborers.
How are we going to make that?
No, I don't think we need the day laborers, actually. We've created an underclass here where we've now made people born here unemployable here. We've cut them out of the bottom of the labor market. Kids can't get their first jobs nearly as easily as when I was a teenager, or little alone when you old guys were. I'm old now too, I guess. But like, I was around when my labor as a 14 to 16-year-old was in demand. It's not in demand now. If say we were making fries here instead of news, I'm offered a 25-year-old person who maybe doesn't speak very good English, whatnot, but a 25-year-old person who I'm going to pay $15 minimum, a very high $50 minimum wage to, or the 14-year-old offered a $50 minimum wage to. I'm probably going to go with the 25-year-old. He's more likely to show up on time, have a little discipline at the job. But we've created an underclass here where unskilled labor of people born here is now completely wiped out of the labor market. They don't have the skills to be high enough, but they're also outcompeted at the bottom.
There's a little more going on here than we're admitting. If you go to your fast food restaurant, you're going to find that the servers are almost 100% working for minimum wage and coming from places where minimum wage looks pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
So, and they're probably here on student visas, but not going to school. So maybe we start there and just say, all right, we've had enough of that. It's time for some people to go home. It's time to put the gate up against others. So the people who are born here, and it's not just white people, it's also everybody else who was born here.
Mm-hmm.
can actually have a fair chance at a job.
Exactly.
I mean, I know what I don't know what it must be like to run a fast food restaurant. You're probably dealing with irresponsible staff who don't show up on time. It's tough, and it's very tempting when you get into a mother load of dependable employees. Just keep bringing them from there. But there are other objectives in the community in which we live than just getting an hamburger.
And I can speak as a guy who owned a food service industry business with those microscopic margins. And I had a couple of excellent young workers who were from the community. You know, they were students, kids who would work weekends and evenings. And I was very happy to have them. They're from nearby. And, you know, the community enjoys that too and everything. But for the bulk of my steady workers, I tell you what, I put a job posting up. They aren't applying. I'm not even getting applicants from the younger community who want full-time work or making jobs in that. And it's a high turnover, unreliable industry as it is. And truthfully, new Canadians were typically my best workers. They would show up on time, put in a fantastic day.
But we've completely distorted our labor market here, where we've got to have it's not just kids doing part-time now, but unskilled blue-collar workers. You know, people who are going to work at the lower end. They don't have the education, you know, maybe they don't have the privilege, whatever. But there's nowhere for them to go right now. There's nowhere for them to go. We've completely cut them out of the labor market in their own country. It's their inheritance, and it's gone.
We did. I mean, the bottom line is, it's going to be complicated, but something's going to change. There's no doubt something's going to give. And I love where the premier is going, though. This is where we're exercising ourselves as a province to say, well, look, we're going to work with our demographic to change it. And these are the tools at our disposal to be able to modify.
Ideally, we wouldn't bring someone here who, you know, isn't feeling a niche labor need, legitimate need to bring in people to work here. Ideally, we're not going to bring someone here and then say, well, we're not giving you a driver's license and education and social services, etc. We would be able to determine that before they hit our shores. We'd figure that out if we had a sane national immigration policy, which we do not have. Which means that Alberta has to do it themselves. And who knows, maybe this creates a template and we're going to see others follow it. We'll see.
I'm just borrow Quebec's template. They take a big interest in who enters there.
They do.
All province.
They do. Now, I think they overweight French. It's French over everything for them. But language definitely matters. I don't think a place we're going to see this with a conservative premier is Ontario. Because the bugger who is, after Justin Trudeau, the most responsible for the destruction of our immigration policy, and no one seems to really know it broadly, is Doug Ford. Doug Ford was demanding this of the feds every single day. More TFWs, more family reunification, more everything. He was the one demanding this because Ontario diploma mills were getting rich. And those guys are deeply connected to Doug Ford and the Ontario PC party. He is amongst the most guilty culprits in Canada for this. And he just kind of skated off easy because he didn't technically make the decision. He was just kind of lobbying for them. So I don't think we're going to see Ontario crack down anytime soon.
Well, a neat thing, just as, sort of the independent active type I am and everything, and part of what I like seeing what's happening and where Premier Smith's coming from. And I've written about that here in the Standard in the past. The demographic shift for inter-provincial, along with from the states, you're really seeing interstate migration. Now, in the long term, this kind of can get scary and troublesome. But when you look, Texas is growing, Tennessee is growing, Arizona is growing, Florida is growing, New York is shriveling, California is shriveling. I mean, they're bringing outside immigrants into these states, but the domestic migration is going to those other states. And that imbalance is growing. And actually, it makes me fear, and then one more generation from now, what might be happening down there. But
yeah,
Premier Smith is going to kind of change that interprovincial migration formula happening in Canada. This is the place to come to work to make a living. Yeah. But it also means the riffraff are going to end up going to the other ones, and that imbalance is different.
Carrots and sticks. Yes. By having sticks against people who are not needed. I'm sorry if that sounds insensitive. I'm pissed off about it. Yeah. So sticks for people who are not needed. We've got too many here. But carrots for those we do want. You're coming to Canada and you've got some capital, you want a business. Well, we are going to make this the best damn place to do it. So, we've got, and we've already in some large majority.
I want to go back to the conservative governments of the 1980s because we had our immigration system worked out very well in the 1950s and 60s, where you had to qualify on a number of points. You didn't just get to come here on student visa and start work and never go home. You had to do, you needed your degree, you needed English or French, you needed support. Somebody in the family had to guarantee that you wouldn't be a burden to the states. But then they said, oh, well, that's kind of a bit unfair. We'll get more votes if we do family reunification. And after family reunification...
That was the beginning of the end right there.
Yeah, and it was conservative government that did it.
Yeah.
And after that, it was, well, you got lots of money, you want to start a business here, and in the end, come ye one, come ye all. And by the way, if you happen to want to exterminate Jews, that's not really a big problem. We can work with you.
Yeah. Well, when my family came, they had to be sponsored. They were sponsored by back when the United Church was a church and theoretically believed in the existence of God and things like that. They were sponsored by church, and it meant that if my family they came here with virtually nothing, and if they were unable to support themselves and needed social services, the church had they were legally responsible. They had two choices. They could pay for it themselves and help them out, or they would pay for the next ticket on the Queen Elizabeth, and you send them straight back across the Atlantic. Yeah, neither of those things happened, but that was the deal. The taxpayer would never be responsible.
Those deals only ever last 6 months. That's yeah.
All right. Well, we've gone way over time on that one, but we had kind of two in there.
It's a big subject.
That was a double-header one. We had it was mass migration in general, but it was really kind of a double. So we'll have to let's go real short on the next one here, because I'm tired of talking about chicks with dicks. Like, we already won the argument. Everybody understands this is stupid. And although I think Alberta and to a significantly lesser Saskatchewan are the only provinces that have actually made substantive legislative change around it. But, Alberta passed legislation or a suite of things. You can't trans your kids. Teachers have to tell the parents if they're changing their pronouns. Pretty common stuff. And very controversially, for the NDP and the usual suspects, boys don't get to play against girls in sports, and men don't get to play against women. Maybe shuffleboard or something like that, or if we're playing a game of table pool, it's okay. But in general, no. We got men and we got women. And it is more nuanced than that. It was actually very thoughtful policy and trying to, accommodate for those who are confused and have gender dysphoria, etc. But then Skate Canada comes out today, says that's racist, or that's this ism, it's not phobish, whatever. There'll be no Skate Canada events in Alberta, you bunch of bigots.
Oh, super. That's just the price we pay. Big deal. Sometimes you have to pay the price for being right. I mean, it's quite apart from whether it's fair and are we being respectful for people with trans issues. The simple fact is men are bigger, stronger, faster than women on average.
That's racist.
I exclude myself from any comparison with my granddaughter who could, run up the street faster than I can. That's for sure. But it's not about equality. It's about the simple fact that men are always going to outperform women, even in wussy sports like skating. So,
okay, now you've pissed people off. You could go after trans, you could go after women, you could go after all these groups. Now you went after skating. Now you've lit up the comment section. Now we're either way.
There it goes. Best. Anyway, it's a good skater, good for you. But the fact of the matter is that, it's just not a fair contest. Alberta had the sense to say it's not a fair contest. We're not going to allow it. Skate Canada will be proved wrong in the fullness of time. Alberta will be proved right.
No, Skate Canada has lost the narrative. The rest of the world's already changing. Even the IOC is realizing this, and they're backing off. No more men in women's sports. And when it comes down to viewership and paying your bills, those who do like watching the skating aren't going to want to see some brute doing the leg up, spinning, and his knackers fly out into the breeze. It's, going to reach circus levels of what that demonstration is. It undercuts the entire sport.
Put that one there,
production. And because it is a sport that's respected and enjoyed by a lot of people, and allowing this ridiculousness is actually going to ruin the sport they're purporting to protect.
It's a wussy sport.
So,
Although
thank
actually,
you.
I'm not sure you're entirely correct. I don't watch a lot of Summer Olympics. The only Summer Olympics I watched was where dudes were beating up the women because it was a novelty.
It was a circus, and it's unfortunate because there are some great athletes actually in the women's and in the men's who figure skate and all of that. Yeah. And this idiocy is going to come to an end. Thanks again to Premier Smith because she's just not having any of it. She actually demanded they apologize. So.
Yeah.
Amen.
So, preach it. Preach it. Okay, well, we're moving through quick to try and get back on. Oh, actually, we're not as bad as I thought. But okay. No, we're good. We're good. Our friends in British Columbia. Let me just have a moment with the camera. Let me talk to you just alone for a moment, my BC Conservative friends. You need to take a Valium. You guys are completely lost your shit at this point. You've got two Conservative parties, which is, I mean, there is a time for breakaways. I was a Wild Roser. Cory was a Wild Roser. Nigel, I think you had Reform history in you.
I do.
Yeah, Reform history. We're all breakaways at some point. You know, we're Albertans. We create new Conservative parties. It's our national pastime. But there's a time and a place for it. You already split into two parties. I get the fight you had with John Rustad. That was a needlessly disgustingly brutal fight, and it really hurt me to see John Rustad not show the grace I think he had in him and did not show the grace to. I mean, it sucks to lose. It really sucks to lose. But there's a time when there's a cause greater than yourself that you got to fall on the sword for. And he didn't do it. And it was brutal. And then you got 1BC, the breakaway Conservative Party, which I think with Rustad gone should come back home. There's time to try and make that work. It's not time to break it apart yet. And I'm saying that, all three of us have been on the breakaway right-wing parties. It's what we do. I love it. But
we can form governments from time to time.
Yeah.
When we can stay in the same room together.
Yeah. And, we hate each other often. We try to make it work. And if you have to break apart, sometimes you got to break apart. I don't think you guys were at that level yet, at least with John Rustad gone. It's worth trying to get the band, at least try to get the band back together. And then 1BC, a caucus of two MLAs, they couldn't hold it together. I mean, I don't know who's right or wrong there. Jared Yager's done some great work on it. He's actually interviewing Dallas Brody about this today. There's a lot of he said, she said. I don't know. Maybe she's wrong. Maybe the other one's wrong. I don't know. Honestly, I don't even care. Get your shit together, BC Conservatives. You look like clowns.
It's like that old joke about two people wrecked on a desert island and you end up with three churches. That's the way things are going in British Columbia right now. It's just sad. Do you want power or do you want to be forever carping on the outside? Get it together. Former United, you nearly did it. You nearly pulled it off last year. 1, 2 seats short were they in then?
Something like, I think 3.
Three, maybe.
But all they're showing is those who were hesitant and didn't end up voting for them. They're confirming that, I was right not to vote. You weren't ready for prime time. We dodged a bullet.
And
that's what you're confirming.
And David Eby is ostensibly one of the worst premiers in a generation going on out there, and he's getting a pass. And it's scary because you know what? If he called a snap election right now, he might get the majority he wants. Thankfully, perhaps he's just not politically astute enough even to realize that, because otherwise he's too incompetent as a premier to withstand. The only hope is that he doesn't do something like that. The Conservatives, you guys have got a couple of years to get your crap together.
Maybe.
And boy, you've really got a lot of crap to get together.
Well, actually, there was a lot of credible sources in BC saying that EB was... calling a snap election, it's tougher than it sounds. Yeah. He would have been in by far the best position to do it, but it also would have looked overly opportunistic.
It can backfire.
Jim Prentice opportunistically called an early election because he thought he had swallowed the Wild Rose whole, and all that result was the PCs getting annihilated down to a distant third place, Wild Rose coming back a second, and the NDP going from a distant, hyper-distant fourth to first. So you don't want to look overly opportunistic, but there's a lot of credible reports that he was planning for a spring election. He'd try to engineer some reason other than that my opponents are
poison bill legislation to force a
Yeah.
downfall.
Yeah. Maybe he's going to have to think twice about that now, because now the BC Conservatives are going to have a leadership race. Maybe they still end up having that spring election. They'll be a little more solved, but God, BC. Like, I thought we were bad. You know, when I'm at events, they got people from around the country, and there's BC Conservatives there, and they're, you know, sometimes distraught about the shit show that's going on. I take them aside. I'm like, it's okay. You know, you guys are relatively bloodless in terms of the conservative civil war you had there. You didn't even fight one election against BC United Liberals. You got them to collapse and fold their tent before it happened. Good on you guys. It's a lot less bloody than what we went through in Alberta or what happened nationally with the Reform and PCs. I was like, good on you guys. You know, don't beat yourself up too much. Now it's time to start beating yourself up. You guys look like monkeys.
Yeah, well, part of the issue too, BC's got, you know, we've got an urban-rural split that's happening everywhere, generally with conservatives and liberal. And we see it in Alberta, between Calgary, Edmonton, and rural. But BC has it too. Interior BC, northern BC has some of the most strong conservative country in the country.
I got a couple of monkeys on the line, by the way. They don't like being compared to conservatives.
Yes. and then you get Victoria and parts of Vancouver and some of the most hyper left-leaning in the entire country as well. And Vancouver actually has more swing to it than some people give it credit for. I mean, we've seen some strong Reform members of Parliament come from urban Vancouver areas. It's been a while.
Vancouver's a different city.
It is, but there's
literally a different population.
Still some potential going on in the metro area anyways. But it makes it a very difficult balancing act for a Conservative Party to be able to garner those high population area votes and still maintain. I mean, it's a nightmare. I don't envy whoever's going to try and pull it together, but as we're kind of saying here, whatever the formula is, guys, you've got to do it. You got to find it. You got to find it before spring.
You know, just the first thing is, okay, the Conservatives, John Rustad did finally fall on his sword. They're going to have their leadership race. Those are always divisive, but maybe they come out in the end. But to the one BC guys in particular, the party, it's over. You guys got a lot of traction with this little party. I mean, it didn't do great in the polls, but it takes time, and I'm relatively impressed with how they made a name for themselves, picking hard wedge issues and leveraging them right, forcing the Conservatives, who are getting pretty soft on some issues, forcing them into the right way to go. But you blew it up. Get back all in the same tent. Dallas Brody, you can run for BC Conservative leader. I think you'd actually have a shot. From my side of the Rockies here, you've made some good waves. Get back in there. Do it together. The BC NDP are too damn dangerous to be left to chance. So, all right. Party shots. Who wants up first?
I'll just hit it fast. It kind of segues in just that there is a parallel two-person caucus trying to make a name for itself here in Alberta with Pete Guthrie and Scott Sinclair. Part of the issue that might be the case too in BC with their one BC of two that split into two.
Two BC.
Yes. But they're prickly individuals, have difficulty working on a team as well. I mean, Pete Guthrie had a hard time in the Kenny government. He's had a hard time. They aren't necessarily, it might not even be an ideology thing. It could be a personality thing where they just can't work with others. It'll be interesting to watch that micro experiment develop in Alberta over there as well.
Interesting. You know, that's good. We have to save that one. We're going to call one BC, two BC now. That's good material.
Editorial decision just made.
All right, Nigel, you're up.
Yes, and so we have fun today. We have a lot of fooling around on pipeline, but Hannaford show tomorrow is serious stuff. And Canada's ambassador during the Harper days was Vivian Barkovy, and she will be my guest on Hannaford at 7:00 tomorrow night. She is talking about the plight of Canada's Jews, and she is comparing it to 1938 in Germany, when people are smart, sell their property, and get out. It's getting that bad to be Jewish in Canada, in her opinion. I will ask her why she thinks that.
All right.
Hannaford, 7:00 tomorrow.
A little less weighty as mine, but today I want to note the resignation of Pablo Rodriguez.
Yes.
Yeah. Those who've been around a while remember Pablo. He was a longtime Liberal member of Parliament federally, and he was a cabinet minister under Justin Trudeau.
Heritage.
one of the main censorship ministers, just total, a guy who's cost this company a lot of employees and money. He was one of the guys responsible for the Online News Act. Anyway, he became, when it looked like Justin Trudeau and the Liberals and federally were going to go down before Mark Carney, looked like they were going to go down. He hopped over, became leader of the Quebec Liberals. I don't know all the details of it, but his leadership race has a lot of serious corruption allegations. I don't think anything's proven yet, but there's a lot of damning evidence around some untoward funding and potential corruption. They brought in the anti-corruption unit in Quebec, and he finally went down today, resigned as leader. They have an election coming up very soon, likely in Quebec. The CAQ, the Coalition avec Quebec or whatever, headed for a historic annihilation right now, going down. First place in the polls is the Parti Québécois, promising a third referendum on independence. Oh, you can see the glint in Cory's eyes here. But, running a respectable second is, even because they've been beaten down for quite a bit in Quebec, making a moderate resurgence is the Quebec Liberals. Had a shot of maybe winning, but that's over for Pablo here. Couldn't have happened to a nicer guy.
Adios.
Yeah, adios, Pablo.
Hasta la vista, is that what they say?
Hasta la vista, Pablo. Yeah. Okay. Well, gentlemen, thank you. Thanks to John on production. Also, just everyone watching and listening, take special note of John. John's really brought a lot of additional quality to the show here. He's just been really great. He's the man behind the scenes, so he doesn't get any of the glory, but he's got at least half the guts in his four guys in the room. So, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas,
gentlemen. Merry Christmas. And Merry Christmas to all you. God bless. We'll see you again in the new year. I'll miss you all very dearly. Have a good time with your families. Remember, if you're not yet subscribed to the Western Standard, it's $10 a month, $100 a year for unlimited access. And we're growing. We've got full-time offices in BC, Regina, Edmonton, and we are working real hard. I haven't mentioned much of this. We want to get someone full-time at Queen's Park, holding the Ontario government's feet to the fire. That is one out-of-control government that's just not getting any accountability. No, if you're a conservative voter in Ontario, you don't care if the Toronto Star comes in Doug Ford. You need someone who could speak their language, who understand. I'm not going to get too far into it. My point is, not everyone in Ontario sucks. There's a lot of good people there, and they deserve some Western Standard. For once, it won't be the Eastern media coming out to the West. We're going to take some Western media, and we're going to put it in the East and see how they like it. I have a feeling they're going to like it. I think they're going to like it. All right. Thank you very much for joining us. Merry Christmas. God bless.